there is some good news on the economic development front in the town of Somerville. Today, I talk one-on-one with Micheal, the Economic Development Director for the town of Somerville, for this edition of Quintin's Close-Ups. And if you haven't already, subscribe to my YouTube channel and like Quintin's Close-Ups on Facebook.
Micheal, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Thanks for having me today. I appreciate it.
You're very welcome. Obviously, you're the Economic Development Manager for the town of Somerville, and I know you sent me a list of all the accomplishments and things that you all are working on right now for the town of Somerville. Everything from the town of Somerville planning efforts for the American Rescue Plan Act to obviously community office hours initiatives. What else is new and what else is also happening right now in the town of Somerville?
Well, gosh, since the last time we talked, we had this little thing come around called COVID-19, and it's certainly created some challenges, but I've been really proud of our business community and the partners that we work with at the Chamber of Commerce, at Somerville Dream, for really working hard to make sure that our businesses had what they needed during this time, whether that was access to capital to kind of keep them afloat, whether it was helping them make that pivot into e-commerce. So, we've managed, I think, fairly well to survive the COVID-19 pandemic so far, and knock on wood, we'll continue to do that. But it's been an exciting last couple of years. Certainly, we're looking really hard now at the American Rescue Plan Act funding and trying to assess what makes the most sense and what's going to provide the greatest return on investment for our citizens and for our community as a whole. And that's something that Council will be wrestling with in the coming months as we start lining up ideas for projects and we start putting numbers to them and assessing the funding that we've got available and how to prioritize it. That's going to be a really important process, and it's one that we're going to try to keep as transparent as possible and make sure there are opportunities for the community to have involvement and input as those determinations get made.
And I know this might be a redundant question, but economically, the state of Somerville is?
The state of Somerville is very solid. We've got a great small business community. We've got some fantastic larger business partners as well. I think we've survived the worst of what the pandemic has thrown at us and continue to grow. We continue to add businesses. We're very fortunate, especially in our downtown area, to have a very small number of vacancies. Those are things that are good. Where we've got some long-term businesses. We've got some newer businesses that have come in and made an impact as well. So we have some things under development as well, which is always exciting. It's great to be able to drive around town, look at those sites and see the progress that's being made as buildings get renovated, as new buildings kind of come up out of the ground. That's always exciting. It's always kind of fun to share those progress notes so that everyone can share in that excitement.
What are the businesses that you've added thus far?
We've added a number of restaurants. We're excited right now that we've got one coming up where the old Mustard Seed restaurant was on the edge of the historic district by the railroad tracks. It's going to be an Italian restaurant, and it's being developed by the folks who own Nico over on Shim Creek in Mount Pleasant. So we're excited to see what that becomes. And in the last year, we've added a new pizza place downtown. We've added a new barbecue place in the downtown area. We have another Italian restaurant coming in our midtown. Just a lot of exciting things happening. We've added some interesting new retail as well in the last year or so. We've got a shoe store in downtown. We've got some more women's clothing coming in. Just some younger boutiques and things of that nature as well. So it's a great time for people who are interested in Somerville to take a look and reach out to us. We can certainly help them find what they're looking for.
Where is the underdevelopment in Somerville?
It's happening all over. One of the exciting things that's happening right now, we've got a tax increment financing district happening in Oak Brook, and it's fairly early on in the process. So we're seeing a lot of streetscaping and a lot of just immediate beautification activity. And we think that's going to lend itself long-term to additional commercial development in that node. Obviously, the North Main district with Nexton, with Azalea Square and North Main Market has been booming for a while. We just saw ground break on downtown Nexton back in the spring. That's going to be an almost 100-acre development that's going to have about 200,000 square feet of retail and restaurant, about 100,000 square feet of office space. It's going to have 3 multifamily units as well. So it's going to be an exciting time really all around town. Downtown obviously continues to thrive and be successful, and we're just so pleased about that.
And obviously, you talk a lot about driving around the town of Somerville. What's the economic overview when you look over the town of Somerville?
I think it's continued growth. It's continued opportunity. I think our council has worked very hard to continue to make Somerville an attractive place for people to do business. We have, in the last few months, been able to pass some ordinances that create additional incentives for companies to come and locate in Somerville. And these are the kind of companies that we contemplate when we talk about high skill, high wage jobs. They're opportunities that we believe will help continue to increase quality of life in Somerville. We're fortunate that quality of life is already very high, but our goal is always to find ways to continue improving it. And through these incentive ordinances, we will be able to hopefully attract the kind of businesses that we want to come in. And we're talking about things like corporate and regional headquarters, R&D facilities, biomedical and life sciences, logistics, some advanced manufacturing as well. Our ultimate goal in attracting those kinds of industries is not only to provide job opportunities, high skill, high wage employment opportunities for our residents. We also want to make sure that we are working in tandem with our county economic development partners in the target industries that they're trying to bring in, whether that's Dorchester, Berkeley, Charleston counties.
Okay, what are those businesses right now in the town of Somerville that actually matches your quality life?
I think it's everything that we've got, really. We're fortunate that we've got a great business mix in terms of retail and restaurant. A small anecdotal example is I walked out here in an hour and a half, 2 hours to go grab some lunch. I'm standing out in front of Town Hall. I can walk 2 blocks in any direction, and I've got 15 different restaurant options, and it's literally different restaurant options. It's not 8 hamburger places or 5 seafood places. Right. It's everything from Thai food to traditional Southern down-home cooking to hamburgers to barbecue to seafood to kind of a little cafe with sandwiches and soup. It's pizza, as I mentioned earlier. So it's a lot of different options, and as a guy who likes to eat, that really excites me.
I know it does. Well, let me ask you, Michael, what are those obviously population projections for the next 10 years for the town of Somerville, that is?
Well, we're anticipating that our population, as we get our final numbers from the 2020 census, will put us somewhere in the 54 to 55,000 resident range. And we look at the numbers that are coming out of places like the Charleston Regional Development Alliance as they look out 5, 10, 20 years down the road. And it's not hard to imagine that 10 years from now, we will be north of 60,000, maybe 65,000. The conventional wisdom was that the Charleston Metro as a whole would hit 1 million people sometime around 2030. Now the conversation is it might be as early as 2026. 2027. So it's, the area is growing as a whole. The Charleston region is an attractive place, not only for businesses to locate, but for individuals to relocate from other places to find great weather, to find great tax treatment, and just additional opportunity. We kind of kiddingly call it the Silicon Harbor, if you will. There's a tremendous amount of tech movement that's happening here, tremendous amount of interest from corporate and regional headquarters as they look at, kind of the next great place to locate, sort of in the path of Amazon 2 and things like that.
What are the demographic trends for the town of Somerville?
I think what we have seen over the last several years and what we anticipate to continue is that our population, as people move into the area, will continue to get younger. Our average age right now is around 36, which is fairly young.
My age
We're
bracket.
we're attracting a lot of young families who are attracted by our quality of life, by our quality education system, and the opportunities that the Charleston Metro presents. And we talk a lot about the difference between the generations. In my generation, if I found a job, I moved to where that job was and I built my life there. Younger people, and I don't want to overgeneralize, but tend to be much more entrepreneurial in spirit. They're going to look for the place they want to live that has their quality of life, the walkability or the density or whatever it is specifically that they're looking for. They're going to go to that place and they will either find a job in the local economy or they'll make a job in the local economy.
Mm. Okay, well, what are those income characteristics that is?
Well, I think for what people are always looking for is finding an opportunity to work at a job that satisfies them personally and professionally, but obviously also pays the bills. And those are the types of jobs that we're looking to attract to this area. When we talk about high skill, high wage, generally what we mean is about at least 120% of the average hourly wage for the county. And in Dorchester County, which is the county that we're predominantly located in, that average hourly wage is around $19, $20 an hour. So these would be jobs $21, $22, $25 an hour. Those are the types of jobs that we're looking to attract to the Somerville area.
Okay, what are those different economic development strategies that are needed for the rest of the town of Somerville?
I think in a lot of cases, it's really looking around at what we have, taking an inventory of that, understanding what we could add in different commercial nodes. And I think for example, we talked a little bit about the tax increment financing district in Oak Brook as the work moves from streetscaping and beautification, and we start looking at opportunities to really grow the business community there. We can look back. We had a retail market study done back in 2019 that kind of gave us an idea where our retail gaps were, where the leakage, if you will, was happening out of the town of Somerville to other locations. And so it's really looking at those areas where we're missing opportunities, and that's kind of built into the incentive ordinances that council passed earlier this year. We are looking at how do we attract those specific types of businesses that are going to help us stem that retail leakage or that loss of potential revenue, and those will be the businesses by commercial area that we try to prioritize. And it'll look different in Oak Brook versus, say, downtown, versus the North Main Nexton area versus Brownsville. And it's really my job is to make sure that we understand in those very compact areas what we need and what we're targeting, and that we set our sights on going after those things.
Where are the retail gaps in those compact areas?
It varies by area. What we look at in a place like Oak Brook is, maybe we're looking at bringing in a little bit more retail, a little bit more restaurant, because what we see is that people who live in that area maybe are not finding what they're looking for in Oak Brook, and so they're driving up Dorchester Road into North Charleston, or they're driving on into West Ashley. Whereas, let's say in downtown, it's a little bit different. The business mix has always got to be carefully measured and made sure that we're, again, just as best we can being all things to all people. And so that's really the challenge for us, is just looking at it at that granular level of the commercial area and responding appropriately based on what that commercial area needs.
What's the foundation for local competitiveness?
I would tell you, I think that we're all competitive to a degree. We all want projects to land in our communities. But one of the things that I have come to appreciate about the Charleston region is that whereas in other communities, maybe there's some lip service given to regionalism, what I have found in my interactions with my colleagues in other municipalities, at the county level, at the regional level, there's a lot of truth to that. We all very much support one another. Yes, we're competitive. Yes, we all want to win projects. But at the end of the day, we also realize that a win for the region is a win for each of us. that rising tide that lifts all boats. So absolutely, we're competitive. We want to land projects. We want to create opportunities for businesses to come to Somerville and for people who live here to be able to work here if that's what they want to do. But we also recognize, again, in the end, a win for the region is a win for all of us in the region.
How do you enhance, obviously, infrastructure and, as I look at my Twitter notification here, and facilities that enhance the town's arts, heritage, and recreation capacity?
There are, I think, some tremendous opportunities, and a lot of that's going to happen in collaboration, not only internally with other town staff, but with community members as well. It's a lot of the time, the best way to start addressing a problem isn't to go in and think you've got all the answers. It's to sit and listen, to figure out the right questions to ask, to figure out the right people to ask them to gather that information, and work together to achieve that shared goal. And I think those are the things that we're trying to do here in Somerville when it comes to not just business, but obviously arts, culture, recreation. Those are huge, huge contributors to the quality of life that we enjoy. And, if we're not focusing on those things and we're not engaging, partners all across the community, whether that's businesses, nonprofits, individuals, we're going to lose out. We're going to miss out on some opportunities.
How do you enhance local capacity to support and attract high-performing businesses by providing support services?
I think some of that is really, it comes back to workforce development. It comes back to partnerships within the school system. We're excited. We've got a Trident Tech campus here in Dorchester County that opened back in May. And it's really engaging those partners in some thoughtful dialogue around what our workforce development needs are as we target those businesses and industries that are going to bring, we believe, high skill, high wage jobs. We've got to take a very honest look. What are the strong points of our workforce? What are the areas where we need to do a little bit more work? I think there's been some great work done already, and I'll mention specifically the Manu First program. It is a program that was designed to help support the work of Volvo, other manufacturers in the area, because even at their entry level positions, they typically require at least a year of manufacturing experience. And if you don't have manufacturing experience, it can sometimes be hard to get manufacturing experience. And so the Manu First program was created to offer that equivalence of a year's experience through, I think it's a 62-hour program that is offered through Trident Tech and at the county level. So I think there are some positive things that are happening in terms of workforce development, but so much of it is really just what's the need, what's the gap, who are the partners that we work with to fill it, and that's a significant portion of what we do in economic development is that gap identification and that partner, just aggregation to come together and brainstorm and try to solve these problems.
Okay, what types of job training or education would be helpful for the town right now?
Well, I think in addition to the manufacturing, the other target industries that we look at specifically are things like biomedical and life sciences. And so having, high school and community college programs that we can kind of steer students to if there's an interest, from their point in that as a vocation. Biomedical and life sciences are huge. Logistics, advanced manufacturing. So giving them the opportunity to earn and learn, to take some coursework in high school that's going to shave some time perhaps off of their post-secondary experience, get them into the workforce a little bit sooner. Those are all really important things. And we're fortunate, we've got Dorchester District 2, we've got Trident Tech, and those are both fantastic partners who are already doing a lot of work in that area.
And this might be a simplistic question, Micheal, but how do you attract those healthcare-related businesses?
I think part of it is making it economically attractive for them to choose Somerville as a location. And there is some incentive work that may happen there. And a lot of that gets related to, what is their projected capital expenditure? How many jobs are they planning to bring in? What's the average wage of those jobs? And how does it compare to, our regional or our county average? But those are opportunities for us to be forward thinking for a short period of time with those incentives and to create opportunities where we are attractive. And I say this to folks all the time when we talk about incentives. If the world was equal, I'd put Somerville up against anyone. The reality is the competitive landscape and economic development has changed, and we are not simply competing against other cities and towns in the Charleston metro, but we're competing against similarly situated suburban towns in the orbit of Atlanta or Raleigh or Charlotte or Jacksonville, Florida.
Yes.
And so as we understand who we're competing against, it's critical for us to make sure that we are taking every step we can to be competitive in that process. And I think incentives are certainly a part of that.
Okay, what is the projected, I hate to ask this, employment change now to say 2024?
I think we're going to continue to see, obviously COVID-19 had a tremendous impact on the employment rate statewide, regionally, and locally. We're going to continue to see jobs coming back. We're going to continue to see that unemployment rate lower. I don't know whether we'll get all the way back to the 1.6, 1.8% unemployment that we had pre-COVID, but we're certainly moving in that direction.
And what strong policies do you actually have in place to maintain environmental quality issues and jobs here in the town of Somerville?
I think for us, obviously, there's a huge concern as we look at residential and commercial development. There are a lot of processes that the developers, whether it's residential, whether it's commercial, have to go through to ensure, excuse me, that their environmental quality is where it needs to be. Our job is to make sure, from a local perspective, that we are monitoring for compliance with federal and state requirements. And as we see opportunities to make suggestions for improvement or enhancement, that's an area where we come in as we work to develop the development agreements that will ultimately govern how, where, and when things get built.
And Michael, I wanted to ask you this earlier. I should have asked you this earlier. I'm kind of like burying the question right here. But how do you attract those professional firms that can actually locate and work from anywhere?
That's a huge part of our strategy. One of the unintended, perhaps, results of COVID-19 is that we learned that many people have jobs that allow them to work from pretty much anywhere. Remote work from home has become a huge topic of conversation. And so for us, that is certainly something that's of interest, is being an attractive place for people who can work from anywhere to come to. Building up the knowledge economy, building up the tech economy, those are high priorities for us. And so we're planning outreach. We're planning for how we reach out to those individuals through social media, through paid advertising, print advertising, just to deliver that message that, all things being equal, wouldn't you rather work in a place where the people are nicer, the weather is better, the tax treatment is better? There's a lot to be said for Somerville and the Charleston metro. And, with no disrespect to our friends in the New York City metro or in Silicon Valley, Somerville is an attractive place to be able to work and look out your window and see sunshine a lot of the year.
And you get to drink some sweet tea.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I just had a can of the Arizona sweet tea last week. But where in Somerville do you expand that broadband?
There's certainly, I think, a lot of opportunities. We're fortunate in Somerville that a lot of our town, already has broadband infrastructure in place. I think it's really going to be more of a targeted, effort to identify those neighborhoods that need some support. And we would anticipate, as we start looking at the data, that it may well be in our low and moderate income neighborhoods. But that's certainly, as we think about the American Rescue Plan Act, broadband infrastructure is one of the allowable expenditures, and that's something that we will consider and take through that process as we identify projects and funding to make them happen.
I was also thinking about this too, Michael, but would Somerville ever develop an enterprise fund to grow small businesses in the town?
I think that is certainly something that's on the radar screen. One of my priorities is really to create that entrepreneurial ecosystem where our entrepreneurs and prospective entrepreneurs find the support that they need to take their idea from concept to 3D reality, as I like to call it. We also are looking at ways to attract those folks who are maybe already doing it. Maybe they're working out of their spare bedroom or their garage, and so part of that entrepreneurial ecosystem build will eventually, I hope, be co-working space, maker space, so that the folks who have these ideas have an opportunity to examine whether they can take them to scale or not. They'll have a place where they can work that's not that spare bedroom or that garage. They'll have a place where they can access equipment like 3D printers and laser etchers and things like that will allow them to develop product and do some small scale testing to assess whether they have a scalable idea or not. But that entrepreneurial ecosystem is so critical to the long-term overall economic vitality, not just of Somerville, but really of the region.
And will Somerville develop some sort of, a more diversified tax base, which is less reliant on tourism and residential property taxes?
That's certainly something I think you hit the nail on the head there. That's something that we have to examine and figure out how to do. And that's part of my job in economic development, is looking for ways to bring diversity to that tax base, more commercial, light industrial. Those are the targets that we're looking at. And we're excited to see that, for example, on North Maple Street, the Nexton Parkway area, we are starting to see some development take place. We've got a 250-acre mixed-use development that's coming in that will have residential as well as commercial. We've got another 100-acre development that's going to be exclusively commercial. So, those are definitely things that we are looking at to figure out how we again bring that balance to the tax base and spread the tax burden a little bit differently, a little bit more evenly, perhaps.
And obviously, you talked a lot. Somebody's honking a horn out there, but you obviously talked about people working from home, obviously, and that's a big thing right now. But what's the current housing analysis that you're looking at?
There are always going to be housing challenges, and I think for us, just as it is in most of the rest of the Charleston region, and frankly across the country, there are definitely some challenges right now in terms of affordability. That's a challenge that we're going to have to figure out the answer to, because we understand to what degree the Charleston economy is supported by service sector jobs, and making sure that those individuals have housing that's affordable, that allows them to stay in this area and continue to pursue the employment that they have chosen. That's going to be critical. And, we're going to need some partners. We've had good conversations with some residential developers. We've had good conversations with other partners in that space. And, I believe there's an answer out there, and the more brains and the more conversation we get around the table, I think we'll find it.
What are those top factors, as far as investment decisions?
Quality of life, I think, is the biggest driver. The reality is, when you're a Somerville and you're competing against suburban cities and towns in the metro Atlanta area or Charlotte or wherever, by and large, most things are going to be pretty equal. You're going to have very similar types of workforces. You're going to have very similar types of land opportunities. What makes the difference ultimately is quality of life. When the site selector is visiting your community, when the CEO of the company is visiting your community to evaluate you versus another community, what's the quality of life look like? Certainly education plays a part in it, and we're very fortunate in that regard to have a DD2, which is a tremendously high achieving district. But it's more than just that. It's public recreation, it's arts, it's culture. It is, something I call placemaking. It's that sense of place that your neighborhoods create. And as these site selectors and these CEOs are evaluating your community, the question in the back of their mind is, can I see my people living here and having a good life? And we believe the answer in Somerville obviously is yes, but everything that we can do to continue enhancing that quality of life, we're going to continue to do it, because ultimately we think that is the biggest of our competitive edges.
Who is your biggest competitive citywide right now?
It's hard to say, because ultimately it comes down to a lot of decisions or a lot of factors that aren't necessarily in our control. Where we've taken steps with our incentives to control the economic impact of site selection, but there are other things that we may never know. Someone chooses to locate their company because it's near the CEO's childhood home, or because it's in a place where it gets a certain kind of weather all year round. So I think as we look around, you kind of think about Charleston as a metro and some of the other metro areas in the Southeast particularly, and that's Birmingham, it's Atlanta, it's Raleigh, it's Jacksonville, it's Orlando. I would say, without naming a specific city, our competition are really the metro cities and towns in those areas. And again, all things being equal, we would put Somerville up against anyone.
And how many site elections are there in the town of Somerville?
We're evaluated on a fairly regular basis. I think most cities and towns, of a certain size, particularly in the Southeast, are. We may never know, which is sort of the interesting part about site selection, because typically, by the time you're contacted by a site selector, you've already been evaluated, and it's hard to know how many times you've been evaluated and the determination has been not right, or at least not right now. I would say probably, I hate to even put a number on it, really, in terms of how many times we get looked at, but I would say at least 8 to 10, 12 times a year we get feelers from site selectors who say, hey, I've got this opportunity. You guys might be right for it. Let's kind of go through this initial screening. Let's look at land availability, building availability. Send me some information on your workforce. Send me some information on your community and quality of life.
Every time, and I'm over in Mount Pleasant all the time, and even here on the peninsula, here in the city of Charleston, everyone's like, there's no more land. Where's the more land available in Somerville?
We've seen some places. Certainly there are some tremendous opportunities out along the interstate, and as Somerville's boundaries continue to grow, as we kind of thoughtfully approach the issue of annexation, there is space, particularly industrial space, between the town's western boundary and the Jedburgh Ridgeville area. We anticipate there's going to be a lot of growth there. Kind of on the 17A route back towards Cottageville and Walterboro. There, you've got the Pine Hill Business Campus out there, but you've got some tracts of land that are large and undeveloped at this point. So, the guess is it's not going to happen necessarily in core Somerville, but it's going to happen as we continue to sort of thoughtfully grow the town of Somerville in the directions where there is available land to be developed.
What is your investment plan for attracting minority businesses?
I think that for us is an absolutely critical element of what we're doing in terms of overall business attraction. I've been really excited to see the recent announcement from the Charleston Metro Chamber in partnership with the Greenville Area Chamber and the Columbia Area Chamber. Bank of America, I believe, made a $500,000 investment to facilitate greater business development opportunities for small and minority-owned businesses. And so that's something that we value particularly as well. One of the things that I hope we'll be able to see coming out of this community office hours initiative that we've just recently launched is opportunities to talk with minority entrepreneurs and existing minority business owners about how we can better support and create an environment where they can be successful.
How many of those existing minority business owners are there?
Off the top of my head, to be really honest, I don't know. We've got about 4,000 licensed businesses here in Somerville, but off the top of my head, I don't know what the number is in terms of which ones, how many are minority owned.
How many do you want to attract over the next year?
I would love to attract as many as want to be here. I don't know that I've got a specific numeric goal. My initial goal is let's open that conversation, let's have it, and let's make sure that we are communicating to our minority-owned businesses and our minority entrepreneurs that we are indeed open for business, that we want them to look at Somerville as a place that is not just business-friendly, but that is going to work hard to ensure that they've got an opportunity to be successful.
And you just mentioned that in the last quote there, but write the headline. What do you want a local newspaper to say about the town of Somerville a year from now?
That we remain open for business, that we are business friendly, that Somerville is a place where you want to be if you are interested in doing business. That it creates opportunity for our business owners, and that in turn that creates opportunity for our community, and it keeps that quality of life continually growing and improving.
And what is the current tax base over there in Somerville?
Well, as you mentioned before, we're pretty heavily skewed right now toward the residential side, and so that's a lot of what drives our effort to attract more business and industry, is to kind of bring some balance to that. One of the challenges in terms of the tax base has been, Act 388, which really has caused some struggles with Dorchester District 2 in terms of their ability to spend on a per pupil basis. And so we want to create an opportunity to grow our commercial and light industrial sectors to bring additional funding and resources to that effort.
Micheal Lisle with the town of Somerville Economic Development Department. Thank you for your time. And again, welcome back to Quintin's Close-Ups.
Quintin, it was great to see you. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.